There's a famous quote that goes, "Be thankful for what you have, you'll end up having more." Something I can certainly get behind, and seeing as Oprah's never steered me wrong before, I'd say let's put that theory to the test. Here's what I'm thinking. If I appreciate Mario Party 1 and 2 hard enough, then it should score me a copy of Mario Party 3. Okay, now just focus on appreciating them real hard, make them feel it, feel that appreciation. Well, looks like Oprah's done me dirty on this one. When it comes to appreciating your games the right amount, the question is typically, do you appreciate them enough? I don't think anybody's ever been accused of appreciating their games too much, although I suppose it could be possible. Okay, so what would appreciating your games ideally entail? Saying thank you after you play them, remembering their birthday, listening empathetically to how they feel for once? I mean, goodness knows how many times my games have had to listen to my problems, and not once have they ever complained about it. Well, when it comes to appreciating your games, I think the most simple way to do it shouldn't come as much of a shock by playing them. And even better, by playing them and enjoying them, which you can force yourself to play games, but you can't really force yourself to enjoy them. There may be games you own that you play resentfully, and it can be hard for something to be appreciated when it's simultaneously being hated. Just ask people who wear socks with sandals. Talk about rebels with the cause, and the cause is comfort and convenience. My advice for the games you don't enjoy: send them off to greener pastures. I remember my copy of Altered Beast telling me its last 5 owners hated it before it landed with me. Well, you've found a place you can call home now, buddy. But enjoying a game, and by extension appreciating a game, doesn't necessarily have to come from playing it though, does it? That's right, giving your games a good old stare, or perhaps you appreciate simply owning certain games because they have some sort of attachment to your childhood, tie into your collecting goals somehow, or any number of reasons. Maybe you just like the artwork, or it was signed by somebody awesome. Heck, there could be some games that you feel are just flat out bad games to play, but they still mean something to you. Now, when reading further into the question, appreciating the games you already have, it's a question that comes with some implications, like, are you too focused on games you don't have? Games you either plan to get at some point or are still deciding on. It's your classic case of being distracted by what you don't have instead of paying attention to what you already do. And this can apply to whether you own 10 games, thousands of games, or heck, even if you just collect games digitally, if you know what I mean. It makes sense why this happens. Getting a new game feels great. For a lot of us, I think the emotion of adding a new game to your collection could go back to childhood when there were few things more exciting than getting a game. So now that we're adults and we can do what we want, why not just replicate that feeling again, and then again. In a way, wanting a game as a kid was the ultimate example of a kid saying, "I want this toy or treat," to which the parent says, "We already have some at home." And what greater toy or treat was there besides video games? Being turned down like that was always the ultimate buzzkill as a kid. Yeah, it makes sense that the parents are trying to be responsible and not spoil their kids, but it's such a boring answer regardless, when going to the store to buy a new game would have been so much more exciting. Sure, getting game rentals were a nice consolation back then, but these days, screw that, we're playing for keeps. I tell you what though, many of us sure did appreciate the ever-loving heck out of our games as kids. Now, I think it's fair to say that you shouldn't feel like you have to just stop buying new games altogether. The answer, as most often is the case, is simply finding the right balance. When you add new games to your collection, think about how they'll fit into your collection, as well as your recent plans. For example, say you just bought Super Metroid and you were planning to play it, but then you decided to buy Super Mario RPG the next week and started playing that instead. Fast forward to 2 years later and you still never played Super Metroid. You may not want to do that, or maybe you do. I mean, do whatever makes you happy and all that jazz. I'm just saying that it's a factor to keep in mind. And maybe I'm just a weirdo. Well, I'm definitely a weirdo, but I try to think of my collection as one big happy family, all getting along together. Every time you add a game, it's like adding a new member, and I need to make sure they all get along. For example, when I added some of the Mario sports games to my collection, rather than a warm embrace, Paper Mario started acting like a total jerkosaurus, talking about how it's one of the greatest games of all time and how they wouldn't be getting any playtime because I'd be spending the extensive amount of hours that it required to be played through. Well, it earned itself a timeout in the corner for that little tantrum. Now, I understand to a certain extent any gamer is always going to have a backlog, and expecting yourself to beat every single game you buy as soon as you buy it is probably pretty unrealistic, no matter how hard certain games pine for your attention to play them. But that doesn't mean you want your backlog to be more out of control than it has to be, and just think about how certain games of yours feel about being thrown onto the old backlog. I know some people feel an incredible amount of pressure to play certain high-profile games. Yeah, some games can just chill on the backlog no problem, whereas others can stick out like a sore thumb. Try leaving a game like Chrono Trigger on your backlog for years. You'll never hear the end of it like I did. One of the greatest games of all time, it deserves better treatment than to sit around on, as it told me, was a glorified loser's club. But this begs the question, is putting a game on a backlog more of an insult or a compliment? I mean, what does it say about the games you've never played and haven't even been put on a backlog? Ouch. Well, I can only speak for myself, but when I put Chrono Trigger on my backlog, it felt more like something really special that I could look forward to. I can't tell you how many games there are I love that I wish I could play fresh for the first time, and saving Chrono Trigger for me felt like one of those games others wish they could experience for the first time again, except now I was in the unique situation of being able to do that myself. So it was more like a fine wine being set aside to age for a special occasion, even if that special occasion was basically just one random Saturday afternoon. Yep, playing this game now sounds good. Point is, I was very appreciative of having the game during all the years I hadn't played it yet, even though I hadn't played it yet. So I would say that if a game is on your backlog and you're serious about it, you can still appreciate it. But if a game's been on your backlog for a number of years and you're probably never going to actually play it, it's just on your backlog as a formality to try to not hurt its feelings, yeah, then it might be fair to say you don't appreciate it. And yet, I would still say there's situations where games not on your backlog can be appreciated. Maybe you've already beat a game and you're happy to just keep it around. Maybe it's a game you keep around as a curiosity to pop in every now and then and not necessarily play all the way through. Or maybe you just simply don't want to put it on your backlog yet, for the sake of not crowding up your backlog. So yeah, I don't think a game needs to be on your backlog to be appreciated, but you know what I do think a game needs to be in order to be appreciated? Not lost or gone. Believe me, I understand that things can become lost. It can happen. But at the same time, the only way something like my copy of Rocket Knight would ever be lost or gone is if it was stolen from my literal cold dead grip. Games aren't like your cell phone, keys, wallet, or anything like that where you're constantly having to take them places. It's just boom, here it is and here it stays unless it's being played. I will say though, one of the understandable exceptions is if you're moving. Seems like no matter what you try to do, something always gets lost during a move. Losing games in a move just sucks. And where do they even go? Wherever the sock fairy puts all those missing socks is my guess. Either way, the more games you add, the more games you have to keep track of, and the more you care about the games you have, the less likely you are to lose them. I think it's fair to say that the drive to acquire more games isn't going away. So it's a matter of appreciating the games you have while simultaneously adding games. In some cases, it's just difficult for a game you already own to have the same shine and luster to it that a game you just got might have. And sure, we go in there and stare at the games we already have every now and then, but has your copy of Sonic 2 ever told you just don't look at me the same way you used to? And maybe you do, or maybe you don't. It's not to say that your appreciation of a game should match the excitement you felt when you first got it, but if your feeling on a game is nothing other than, oh yeah, I remember buying that, that could leave a little bit to be desired. And sure, maybe not for everyone, but I can't see how it wouldn't for at least some of you. But hey, at least you didn't forget its name. That would be awkward, because lucky for you, its name is right on it. Ideally, your appreciation of a game may evolve as you either play it or learn new things about it over the years. How many of you look at some of the games in your collection and think, oh, what a journey it's been? Now that's what I call some serious appreciation. Alright, but with all that said, for this video's question, I of course want to ask you how much you appreciate the games you already have, trying to be as honest as you can. We're not here to judge. Well, actually this is the internet, so somebody probably is, but who cares? I always find the most honest answers to be by far the most interesting anyways. So with that said, leave your answers below and I will see ya in the next video. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna try Oprah's appreciation trick just one more time. Now focus, appreciate really hard.
He's the red bird, yeah. And he's talking about video games. He's the red bird, oh yes. And he hopes that you like what he had to say.